Let's talk about role clarity. This is where it starts to get real. Before we talk about the roles people take, let's talk about what leadership, what governance can mean. These are the three ways that I think about leadership. I am not a trained organization development consultant. I've just worked in a lot of pretty wacky alternative organizations and I've thought about it a lot. So here at the library, the Tool Library in Baltimore, we like to think about three things, three components of governance. One is authority. That's what you might think of as leadership traditionally, right? This is making decisions that affect other people, that affect the organization, right? Taking on the responsibility for making the hard choices. But there's also autonomy to consider, right? Who makes decisions that affect their own stuff? What kinds of decisions can people make when only they are affected by them, or when their own work experience is affected by them? So you might think of like staff getting to decide how they achieve a goal, right? Or librarians at the front desk getting to decide what's the best way to help this member when they came in just now, right? So there's autonomy involved in leadership too. And then there's administration, and this is the secret one, right? Being a good leader also just means getting stuff done sometimes, right? So who is implementing, who is moving a project forward, who is responsible for the bottom line of, hey, we decided we're going to have a yard sale. When is the yard sale happening? Put it on the calendar. So there's a lot of administrative labor in governance, in leadership as well. And so thinking about the ways that these three components of leadership are distributed can help you lift up marginalized folks. So for example, our education program includes classes for people with marginalized gender, so women, non-binary, and trans people. And we as staff happen to all be women, non-binary, and trans, except for one. And our one male staff member, we talk a lot about, Chris does the administrative part of leadership. So we have the autonomy and the authority to decide what happens, and then Chris implements. And we're leading together, but Chris has let those of us who have been marginalized traditionally step forward in authority, and Chris has taken the administration. We'll talk a little bit more about how that works in a sec. But some of the big questions, when you start thinking about your governance structure, whether it's the one you have now or the one you want to build, some big questions are who is making the decisions, right? And then who has to implement them? And what is the relationship between those two people? Whose voices are the loudest? And who is the most comfortable speaking out? Often this is related to social identity, like gender, race, class. Who has been explicitly empowered to lead versus who is really stepping up to do the work? Sometimes it's not the same person. And who's being affected by choices that they can't influence. So one phrase we use a lot here comes from disability rights organizers from the 1990s. Nothing about us without us. So don't make any decisions that affect us if we're not in the room to at least see that decision getting made. But ideally to be able to influence that decision.